bedtime story.
My tooth fell out, so tonight I'll see the tooth fairy. It's a shame I can't tell my parents about it. They're away on a business trip again. Here's my tooth. I really want a very beautiful doll. I'm putting it under my pillow. Now I just have to pretend I'm asleep, so the fairy thinks I'm really sleeping. They say she comes in the middle of the night. My mission is not to fall asleep.
Deleted Peppa Pig episode, Daddy's Jealousy, which was never showed on TV. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see more interesting videos. One morning, Peppa woke up to shouting in the kitchen. Daddy Pig and Mummy Pig were arguing loudly. "You were with Rabbit again," yelled Daddy Pig. "Every day. The garden, the garden. And what about me?" "He was just helping with the carrots," Mummy Pig answered softly. Daddy Pig didn't believe her. His round face turned red with jealousy. That night, he didn't sleep. He sat in his chair, staring into the darkness, his face calm, his eyes unblinking. The next morning, he left. He told the family he was going to the city. But in truth, he went to see his close friend, the head of the wolves. Everyone had heard of him, of his power, of how he rarely left his house. Daddy Pig handed him a photograph of Mr. Rabbit. "He's too close to my wife," Daddy Pig whispered. "Make him disappear." That very night, Mr. Rabbit didn't return home. Peppa noticed that Mummy Pig cried more and more often in the bathroom. "Where's Mr. Rabbit, Mummy?" she asked one day. "He left for good," and Daddy Pig smiled, wide, silent. He was calm again, too calm. But one night there was a knock at the window. It was 3 a.m. On the porch stood the head wolf. "You didn't tell me he was my friend," he said, staring Daddy Pig in the eyes. "You didn't tell me he fed my pack." Then the house went dark. The next morning it was empty, just scratches on the walls and tufts of gray fur by the door. Deleted Peppa Pig episode, Peppa Pig and the Slender Forest, which was never showed on TV. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see more interesting videos. One day, Peppa Pig's family decided to go on a picnic. Daddy Pig found an old map in the attic and exclaimed, "Here it is, the forgotten forest. No one around, silence, fresh air. Perfect." They drove out, but as soon as they entered the forest, everything changed. The silence was too silent. No birdsong, no rustling leaves, only black rotting trees and fog creeping along the ground. "Mummy, I don't like it here," George whispered, clutching his toy dinosaur. "Don't be afraid, darling. It's just a forest," replied Mummy Pig. They spread out a blanket and unpacked the basket. Peppa noticed a piece of paper pinned to a tree. She walked up and read aloud, "Do not look at him." "Look at who?" Peppa asked curiously. And then something moved behind the trees, very slowly, very tall, faceless, because there was no face. Slender Man. Daddy Pig thought it was just someone in a costume, but the closer he came, the more everything around began to distort. "To the car, quick!" Mummy Pig shouted. But the way back was gone. Everything was covered in fog. The trees were covered with papers, drawings, Peppa's house on fire, George alone in the forest, and everywhere, him. Slender Man appeared right in front of them, not walking, not running. He just was. Peppa and George held hands. Slender Man came closer, and then Peppa remembered. He feeds on fear. Don't be afraid, and he'll vanish. She closed her eyes, hugged George tightly, and shouted, "You're not scary to us." The fog cleared. Slender Man vanished. The forest returned to normal. The pig family quickly got into the car and drove away. But when they arrived home, they noticed a note lying in the trunk. It said, "You escaped. This time, to be continued." Deleted Peppa Pig episode, Family Dinner on Halloween, which was never showed on TV. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see more interesting videos. Halloween was approaching. The pig family's house was perfectly decorated. Carved pumpkins with smiling faces, garlands made of bones. Daddy Pig was hanging lanterns, Mummy Pig was setting the table, and George was drawing spooky faces on a sheet of paper. Everyone was busy. Everyone except Peppa. Peppa stood in the corner of the kitchen. "What will I be for Halloween?" she asked. Mummy Pig turned to her and smiled far too widely. "You'll be the main course, darling." Peppa laughed. She thought it was a joke. But then Daddy Pig picked up a huge cooking pot. George opened the oven, and Mummy began chopping garlic. When the guests arrived for dinner, the table was already set. The pumpkins were glowing. Ghosts were hanging from the ceiling. And in the center was a massive dish. On the platter lay a pink piglet. "Where's Peppa?" asked Susie Sheep. "She's right here," Daddy Pig replied. Deleted Peppa Pig episode. They arrived at night, which was never showed on TV. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see more interesting videos. One night, Peppa woke up to a strange sound, as if someone was scratching the roof of the house. She looked out the window and saw a light, bright, green, blinding. A huge flying object hovered right above their house, silent, unmoving, as if it were watching. The next morning, no one remembered what had happened during the night, except Peppa. George had a strange mark under his eye, tiny circles that glowed in the dark. Mummy Pig kept quietly repeating the same phrase while staring into nothing. "They'll be back soon." Daddy Pig just sat and stared at the sky. He didn't eat. He didn't speak. At school, no one talked to Peppa. Madame Gazelle only gave her a strange look and whispered, "You saw them, didn't you? Then you don't have much time left." That night, Peppa woke up again. 3 figures stood in her room, thin, gray, with huge black eyes. They didn't move, didn't blink. They just stared. And then Peppa heard a voice in her head. "We chose you. You remember more than you should." Her body went numb. She couldn't scream. She just lay there as one of them reached for her nose and touched it. The next morning, Peppa woke up in her bed, but everything was wrong. George called her not the real Peppa. Mummy was afraid to enter her room. In the mirror, a different piglet stared back, with empty eyes and a faintly glowing mark on her nose. Deleted Peppa Pig episode, Creu13 virus, which was never showed on TV. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see more interesting videos. It started with a simple sneeze. Daddy Pig caught a cold after working in the garden and spent 2 days in bed with a fever. "It's just a runny nose," said Mummy Pig. "It will pass." But on the 3rd day, he stopped responding. He just sat at the table, chewing slowly. His eyes turned cloudy, and his skin took on a grayish tint. Then he lunged at the fridge, tearing into bags and food, grunting louder and louder. Mummy Pig locked the door. Panic swept through the town. The news reported on the HRYU13 virus, which was turning pigs into hungry, mindless creatures with only one desire: raw meat. The school was closed. The teacher was seen outside, dragging a bag and mumbling, "Homework, homework." Peppa and George climbed into the attic, shut the hatch, and turned on their walkie-talkies. "George, don't fall asleep," said Peppa. "If I start grunting, don't come near me." That night, they heard a knock. "Peep-ha, open up." She looked out the window and saw the street was full of zombie pigs. Among them, Miss Rabbit, Danny, even Susie. They were all grunting and repeating, "Peep-ha, come out and play." Deleted Peppa Pig episode, The Little One Who Came at Night, which was never showed on TV. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see more interesting videos. It started on a completely ordinary night. Daddy Pig was dozing off in front of the TV, George was cuddling his dinosaur, and Peppa was drawing in her room. Mummy Pig was holding her belly. The due date was close, and everyone was waiting for the new baby. But the labor began suddenly, at 3 in the morning. The lights in the house flickered, the clocks stopped, and outside the window came a strange scraping sound, as if someone were dragging a hoof across the glass. Daddy took Mummy to the hospital but returned alone, holding a small bundle. "It's a girl," he whispered. "She is special." From that day on, the house no longer felt cozy. The baby never cried. She simply stared at everyone without blinking, her eyes far too dark for a newborn. She was never heard during the day. But at night, one morning, George was found unconscious. On his neck were 2 thin puncture marks, like from sharp needles. Daddy said it was probably a mosquito. Peppa decided to find out. She stayed awake, hiding under the bed, and she saw the baby rise from her crib. She didn't crawl, she walked like a grown-up. She went over to George, leaned in, and the next morning Peppa told Mummy everything. But Mummy only said, "She's our child, and now she must feed." Every night, Peppa never slept again, because at night the baby whispers to her, "You're sweet. Your turn is soon." Deleted Peppa Pig episode, Eevee and Her Terrifying Hunger, which was never showed on TV. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see more interesting videos. At first, everything was normal. Little Eevee was sweet, oinking, playing with George and eating puree. But after just a few weeks, Mummy Pig noticed something strange. Eevee was never full. She could eat 3 jars of puree, a mountain of cookies, and half of Daddy Pig's dinner. But she would still reach for more food and whisper, "More, more." With each day, Eevee grew bigger. She no longer chewed, she just swallowed food whole. And at night, Peppa would hear her whispering in her sleep, "I want you." One morning, Peppa woke up, and Mummy and Daddy were gone. She walked into the kitchen. There at the table sat Eevee, but now she was much larger than usual. Her belly bulged like a giant balloon. "Where's Mummy?" Peppa whispered. "Inside," Eevee replied. Peppa screamed. Eevee licked her lips. "Now you are dessert." After that, no one ever saw Peppa again.